Welcome to Bad Dog Agility, a podcast helping you reach all of your dog agility goals. Whether it's competing under the bright lights of the televised finals at Westminster or successfully navigating a homemade course in your own backyard, we'll bring you training tips, interviews, and news about the great sport of dog agility. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
The show starts with your hosts, Jennifer, Esteban, and Sarah.
I'm Jennifer.
I'm Esteban.
And I'm Sarah, and this is episode 312. Today's podcast is brought to you by hititboard.com and the new Teeter Teach It, an easy-to-use tool that controls the amount of tip on your teeter so you can introduce motion to your dog in a gradual way. Go to hititboard.com for the new Teeter Teach It and other training tools and toys. Use discount code BDA10 to get 10% off your order. That's hititboard.com. Today, we have a very special guest on the podcast. We have Angie Benacquisto joining us from Michigan. Welcome to the podcast, Angie.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Excellent. Angie is a two-time national agility champion in the 12-inch class. She actually has other national agility champion titles. We'll let her talk about those in a minute. But the big win here is that Angie just won the 2022 European Open in the small dog height, the first American to ever win this event in any height. So we are very excited to be joined by Angie today. Angie, tell us a little bit about your history in agility in general and specifically with Sundae.
So I started agility because I found a flyer on a wall from an obedience class, and I thought it would be fun to maybe put a jump in the little tiny patch of grass I had in the condo building we shared with 3 other people. So little tiny patch. Next thing you know, here I am. But yeah, it started in the 16-inch class with a little rat terrier I got from a shelter who went on to become my first national champion dog. And then I had a border collie that also won, who is in 24-inch. And then there is Sundae, who is the most perfect little dog to live with, to train. Just in general, she's just incredible.
And Sundae is a mixed breed dog. So how did you get her? How did you happen upon her?
So that was actually kind of a funny story. I came home from work one day and my husband, Mike, says, yeah, I emailed Julie Jenkins about a puppy. And I said, you did what? Like, I had no idea he was even putting the searchers out looking for a puppy. And so, it was just a random, here's my husband looking for a puppy for us. And that's all she wrote. Next thing you know, I have this amazing little dog.
That's awesome. Actually, one of my first agility dogs, kind of like the dog that I fell in love with the sport with and fell in love with the dog was the dog that Esteban found for me, kind of the same way. He was like, I've been looking and I think this dog would be perfect for you. That was Denver, my mini Aussie way back when.
Clearly, you guys have very different husbands than myself, because my husband decided a French bulldog was the way to go. So I'm a bit envious of your guys' situations here.
Yeah, I was mortified. I'm thinking, oh my God, what did he say to this breeder? Because I'm all, this is how you should approach people and this and that. And he's just like, oh yeah, I emailed the breeder about a puppy. And I'm like, you did what?
Nice. So, let's talk about the European Open. And of course, Jennifer, you were there too with B in the medium height class. So we have Angie and Sundae in the small dog height class and Jennifer and B in the medium height class. So Jen, why don't you tell us about the structure of European Open for people who aren't familiar with the event? Like how many rounds? I know there's like team and individual, all that kind of stuff.
This was only my second European Open, so I'm actually quite unfamiliar with the event as a whole. I went 5 years ago and then took a long break and then went back this year. So Angie, feel free to correct me. I know you have a lot more experience than I do, but the European Open has individual events and it has team events. So on the first day, it's a 3-day event. On the first day event on Friday, it's 2 team classes. So you have team standard and team jumpers. And you are matched up on a 4-dog team from your country. So in the mediums, there are 8 mediums that go. So it's 4-dog teams. So we had 2 medium teams that went. And you have a standard run and a jumpers run, and they drop the lowest score from your 4-dog team to basically kind of accumulate 6 scores to then determine who makes the finals. And the finals is Sunday morning. And then on Saturday, they have individual, and it's standard and jumpers. And depending on the height, it's the top number of dogs. So I do believe in the mediums, it was the top 16, maybe the top 18 dogs from standard make finals. And then the top dogs from jumpers make finals. And that finals is run on Sunday afternoon. So basically Friday is team, Saturday is individual, Sunday is both team and individual finals. So there's some minor details I don't know super clear, like how many dogs from each height make finals. And then they also have ways to earn spots in the finals based on your cumulative score. If no dog from your country made it in on individual rankings, they have like a cumulative team dog. And I will fully admit I'm a little bit unclear, but I know for Team USA in all heights, we had dogs make finals, like earning their way in from individual classes, which is huge for our country. So that was super exciting. So B earned her spot into the finals from her jumpers class. And I know Sundae earned her spot into finals from jumpers as well, from our round placements in jumpers. And then some of our team members earned it in on standard. And then we had 3 teams in finals. Am I correct on that, Angie?
Yep.
Two large dog teams and a medium team in finals. So we actually had a fantastic showing this year at the EO for Team USA.
Awesome. And then for the finals, so you get into the finals, however you get into the finals. And then the finals is like standalone. So it's like clean slate, one run. So, the fact that, that maybe you got in on jumpers, but, were eliminated in standard, just saying that could happen to somebody. You would have a complete, I see 2 people raising their hands. You would have a completely clean slate going into finals, winner take all, kind of event.
Yes, they do a reverse seeding that is like kind of a combination of how you finished in those other classes. So like Angie won her individual jumpers, woo-woo, and so ran very late in the order. And then they always have the previous year's winner gets an automatic bye, and they are the very last dog to run. So next year, Angie gets to be the last dog to run in finals.
Wow, I like that.
So they kind of do a modified reverse seeding in finals, but you are correct. You only have to have one great run to make it into finals, and then it's clear scoring.
So Angie, who was the previous winner that got to run last?
Oh, that was Dorte with Tobias.
All right, that's
amazing team.
Yeah, I mean he's the reigning AWC champion. I had forgotten because, it's been a couple of years with COVID and everything, that he was also the reigning European Open champion at that height. So
I was a little starstruck.
Yep.
Wow. I got to watch that live, and that was very cool.
Yeah. And it's exciting because you beat him twice, right? you beat him in jumpers because you got first place in jumpers and he got third. And then you beat him in the finals. So that's some good stuff.
Yeah. I noticed that I was looking at the results. And so for people who don't know, Germany, I would say, is probably the most dominant country in agility right now. And maybe the past few years through the pandemic. Certainly, especially on the small and the medium side, but even very talented large dogs. And they go deep in terms of depth, right? Where the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th dog, best dogs in the country could easily be the best dog in other countries. And I was looking at the results and I saw Sundae 1 and then Germany 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Right. I saw one of the rounds went like that. And I saw in one of the other rounds that Germany was 3 of the top 7 or 8, things like that. And that's what you're going to find, I think, in a lot of these big competitions. So obviously what you accomplished with Sundae, very, very impressive going head to head and on these kinds of courses. I wanted to ask you, can you talk a little bit about running on that surface and what running on that surface is like? I watched all of your runs. There were some enormous lines, just really long, where you're running from one end of the arena to another. The European style courses are already much bigger than what we typically see here in the United States. and even than what you might see in UKI. And now you're putting it on a surface that is not advantageous to the handler. Whereas at the AWC and some of these other competitions, Westminster finals, for example, you're running on turf, right? And sometimes the handler can run a little bit faster, I think, relative to what they normally would. So what was that like running on that surface?
Honestly, I felt the surface pretty easy. But in fairness, I've been prepping on sand for 4 months now. I started kind of getting myself ready for it, working with an amazing trainer. His name is Chris Curtin with Karma Fitness Academy. And one of the things we did early on is get on sand. And of course, I'm looking around going, Michigan has 0 trials on dirt, like none. They don't exist here. And so next best thing, okay, I got myself on deep beach sand. And so I did all of my training on deep, loose beach sand. And so by the time I hit that surface, it felt just like turf to me. And I'm like, I'm ready to go. And it was super easy.
I love that preparation. I mean, it just goes to show, right, that things don't happen by accident. You're working really hard for this. And for, our listeners, we have had Chris Curtin, Kurt, on the podcast. So our listeners will be familiar with him, and we'll put a link in the show notes to that. But he's a fantastic guy. And I love how he approaches handler fitness, because he is so familiar with our sport. Like we really like working with people that, have that deep knowledge of the sport that we're in.
Yeah, he was awesome to work with. Exactly for the reason that you said. It wasn't just some general trainer. He knew exactly what I would need to be doing, going from one end to the other, direction changes, and how to accelerate out of turns. He knew what I was looking for.
Yeah. Before we move on to the next topic, I wanted to go back to Sundae being the mixed breed, because some people might be confused. The European Open, which I guess is sanctioned by FCI, right, an organization, lets in all dogs, right. So 100%, anyone can go. And the other cool thing about it is the teams are much larger. So when you have teams like Germany, Slovenia, Great Britain, where agility is very well developed and there's large populations of handlers, you can bring more of those handlers with you, right? So you can go deeper on your bench, so to speak. And I think those two things combine to make the European Open very challenging, and in my mind, maybe even more of a measure of a true championship, because you're including a larger number of dogs per country, right? And all breeds. Well,
and what you haven't said is you are comparing that to the FCI Agility World Championship, where there, 4 dogs from each country max per height, and where mixed breeds are not allowed, even though these are both FCI events. They're 2 different events. One allows mixed breeds, the European Open, one does not, the Agility World Championship.
Absolutely. And I think what you, Angie, showed is Sundae's out there and, in my mind, basically a world champion. Like if I'm running and I win a bunch of world championships, and the one time I get to go up against Sundae, I go and I get beat soundly, I'm going to feel less good about maybe being a world champion there, Like it's a remarkable accomplishment to win any event in any venue at any time. But what I'm saying is, as a population, like as a group of enthusiasts, we assign tremendous value to the Agility World Championship, right? Every instructor, every person, every seminar presenter, hey, look at all these things that I've won. I'm a member of the team, yada, yada, yada. But dogs like Sundae are excluded. And so I think it's really a noteworthy thing. So how many times has Sundae been to the European Open?
This was her 4th European Open.
Yeah. So you'd been out there previous years, obviously not done as well as this. So what was it like to feel like you kind of broke through now? Like was that at all in your head?
I had written a post about it when we got back, but actually my first 3, well, all the way up until the 4th one, had not had good results. My first 2 were 4 out of 4 E's. So I went home with a bunch of E's. And then my third one was a few more E's and a few more 5 faults. And then this last one, as I see Jen laughing, followed up with some more 5 faults and another E. So it wasn't until my 16th run, that jumping run that you're talking about, that earned me into the finals. That was my first clear run at EO, like ever.
Wow.
So as soon as I ran that one clear, I'm like, okay, I finally broke through, and I'm ready now. Like, let's bring on finals. I'm ready.
Yeah, I love the determination and persistence, right? Because I've known people who, after going abroad a couple of times and spending all that time, all the emotional energy, the money to go and do that, and not done very well, that they found it very, I guess, difficult to deal with. And they decided, hey, maybe I'm going to take a step back from that. Like, I'm not going to do that anymore. So was there ever a thought in your mind that you're like, maybe I shouldn't go this year? Like, maybe this is just not in the cards for Sundae. Maybe this is beyond what we're capable of doing.
Yeah. After 2019, it was our last run, individual standard. Man, I had that course. It was a weave entry I faulted on, and it was a weave entry that, man, she can do. And oh my gosh, there were so many tears. I sobbed, and I said, I did not want to come back. International is just not for me. We just can't get it. And our assistant coach that year, Annette Alfonso, kind of talked me off our ledge, and she got me back on the horse. So I owed that a lot, in part to her. And then we tried out for 2020, which, as you know, kind of went downhill from there. But this year we kind of came back with a vengeance. So I'm like, I'm ready to give this another shot. But yes, you're absolutely right. It can definitely take the wind out of your sails, because we have been so successful here in the US, and then you go over there and you just get it handed right back at you, and you're like, I can't do this. But we were definitely persistent on that.
Yeah, I think one thing that I like people to understand, or I think it's easy for people to just look at the results and not have an in-depth knowledge of the person, right? An in-depth knowledge of Angie and her history in the sport, and to feel like, or to not recognize how much, I guess, failure happens before success, right? How, I think for the most part, when you see people that are winning at the highest levels, they have been attempting the highest levels for a while. Like when Jen goes and she has amazing runs, she's building on, a decade or longer of going to international competitions over and over and over. And I kind of had the same thought recently when I went to AKC Nationals, and I just felt like there were just so many familiar faces winning the NAC. And you just realize that there is something to be said for experience and for coming back to the same event over and over and over again. And so I just want people to recognize that it does take that experience, that you shouldn't feel disheartened when things don't come the first time or right away.
For sure. I think that's something important too. Like, I think a lot of people here in the US have seen Sundae in particular having success for a while in the US, but they don't realize my 4, attempts at EO before then and 15 failed runs. So I think you don't realize quite what's happened in other events outside of the US.
Right.
I had no idea your statistics until you posted them on Facebook. Yeah. And it was like absolutely incredible. And like when you were talking about it, it wasn't like laughing as much as like, it still just gives me chills, because you hear these things, right? Like Bill Gates dropped out of college, was turned down 300 times before, but like you don't often know someone. And so you're like, yeah, sure, perseverance, all that stuff. But to like see it and know it, and then like live it, it's like, it gives me chills. It's like so exciting. And exactly as you said, Angie, like I've known you for years, just winning, kicking butt, working hard, doing it all. So when you wrote the stats about your like history of EO, first of all, I had no idea, like didn't know. I just know your person is on the team every year. Like you have way more experience than I do, but to like the grit and like the determination is absolutely incredible. And like nobody can have excuses anymore. Like nobody gets to say like, oh, I tried once and it didn't work, I quit. Like, no, there's lessons to be learned. And I don't know. I'm just like excited thinking about it. And like, I'm so excited for you. And the fact that you went back and you worked through it and bam, like all that hard work and effort paid off. And I know Esteban talked a little bit about the All-American thing. I also think it's incredibly worth noting Sundae's age.
Yes,
she turned 8 the day
Yeah.
she won, if I'm correct, right? She turned 8 the day she won.
It was her birthday, her 8th birthday.
I see so many people that are like, oh, my dog's 5 and their career's over. And that's like so disheartening. And you just put the effort in and you've worked really hard, not only on your own fitness. I know you talk about running on the beach, but you work very hard on Sundae too. Like, it's not like we're just going to rely on her youth and age to get her done. You do a ton of strength training and taking good care of her. And I think there are just so many things people can learn from you.
Yeah, we did a lot with her fitness. I mean, in terms of training, I think most of the training went into myself. I mean, I have an 8-year-old dog, and there's definitely some differences. I'm not going to pound an 8-year-old dog. I mean, not that you'd pound a young dog either, but our skills were kind of what they were. So we did some coursework, but yeah, most of her stuff was keeping her fit, keeping her strong, keeping her sound, and not overworking her. So many people, their dogs get injured doing overtraining. So I took on most of the training aspect for myself. But yeah, her age, she's running at the top of her game, I think, at 8 years old. That's really, really kind of cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about your handling. So I've been watching you for a very long time because Sarah and I, we're stats people. So we know, we've known for a long time. As soon as a dog pops in on the radar, a frequent way that happens is we see the numbers before we ever see the dog run, right? There's an obvious statistical outlier in the rankings, and we got to figure that out. It makes me think of the Papillon. Masher.
Yes, Masher. Masher was
right?
a statistical outlier.
Statistical outlier, and in my opinion, just based purely on numbers, is one of the greatest agility dogs America has ever seen, right? Yeah. And Sundae is a dog of that caliber. Even now, I guess, toward the end part of Sundae's career, where, dogs are now older than, say, 5, 6, 7, 8, still a very clear statistical outlier. And you can see this in the rankings. You can see this in the yards per seconds. And that's not even taking into account the different events where you win, the finals that you've made, the teams that you've been on, and things like that. Just looking at run after run after run. How much better is this dog than everybody else? And so that's just a long story for me to say that, I've been watching you for a long time, and I always enjoy watching handlers evolve their handling. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that. You've got 2 dogs that have won national championships in the past. How different do you think you are as a handler today than you were maybe even just 5 years ago, or maybe even more recently? How do you think your handling has evolved recently? Because this is a dog where your handling must span like 6-7 years, depending on when you brought this dog out, right? The dog is 8 now. So how has your handling changed within the lifetime of a single dog to be able to get through courses like this that 8 years ago, the European Open did not look like this? I don't think. Yeah.
Wow. I don't think my handling has changed all that much. I think our gelling as a team is just what has started to come together, because everything, even when Sundae was a youngster, I did everything with intent. Like, even if it was just a speed loop at 10 months old, it was, go, 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 as if it was a national finals. So things appropriate for the dog's age, but she grew up with, hey, we're going as hard as we can at something. And she just loved it. And so I don't know that my handling for her is all that different. We just have kind of evolved the challenges that we've taken on. So even as a young dog, she showed me that she can handle the go, go, go with everything that we did. And so I think it just was a matter of us coming together more as a team with the challenges that we encountered.
Yeah, I mean, the faster the dog, the harder it is to get the timing right. Right. So, and Sundae is a fast dog. So I'm sure that like a lot of the work that you do is about, getting the timing right, knowing what you need to support, what you need to trust, and things like that.
Absolutely. And you hit a key, knowing what to trust, because with a dog that fast, you can think you trust something and in a blink, phew, right out the window. Like you trust something and it's not quite there, or a backside that you swear they are committed and bloop, right on the inside. And there's your elimination faster than you can even blink. So the timing is so crucial.
When we talk about the final specifically, did you feel any kind of pressure, or was it more like, I'm just happy to be here, or you tuned all that stuff out and you're just hyper focused on what you need to get done? Like, what was your approach to the final? Maybe like the hour before your run and then like 5 minutes before your run.
For a finals run, those are actually my easiest runs. I have zero worries. I'm calm as a cucumber because there's really not much you can do. It's not like you're going to go out and train any skills worrying, what is that going to do? Like there's nothing to worry about. There's only one way to run a finals, and that's as hard as you can go. You have no other options. So even in the few minutes before, you just focus on that moment, what you have in front of you, and you attack that course as aggressively as you can. Because honestly, any finals run doesn't mean I'm going to win, but I certainly am not showing up to try and get 10th place. So as hard as you can go is the only way, which really means there's nothing else to worry about.
Do you have any Achilles heel with Sundae? Like, there are people that it's like they have great success, but they struggle with the start line. They have to, and then they have to figure out how they're going to handle the beginning, or they get calls on contacts. The contacts are hit and miss, or the dog drops bars. And I imagine that all of those things are a large part of the stress, right? So do you have any of those Achilles heels, or like, she seems beautiful on the jumping and the contacts, but do you ever worry about those things, or are you like, nope, those three things were solid?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I had a couple people come up to me after the finals run and they said, we saw that you killed it and you won jumping, but we didn't know if you could win the final. And I said, why is that? And they said, we had no idea if your dog had any contacts.
Right.
I thought, well, that's fair. Right. But honestly, her teeter, her seesaw is always a bit, what's going to happen here? She just gets so excited to go. But as you know, we missed the Challenger round win because of the teeter fly off. Mm-hmm. We lost it in hybrid that year because I had to wait with my teeter because I didn't trust it. But yeah, we had been working on that teeter like, hey, 100% criteria for the since NAC. And man, she stuck that thing and it was solid. It was not even questionable. So that made me pretty happy. But I think always an Achilles heel for her is going to be backsides. Like I said, how much do you trust them and how quickly can you leave? Because small dogs with no lift time, and they can sneak right in there faster than you even know what to do with. So that's always going to be kind of a questionable point for me, is timing of backsides.
Yeah, that's a really great point, because I've having run big dogs and small 16, but still there's a difference, and there's a difference in that commitment point. I always enjoy the big dogs because they're taking that backside, and they're still 4 feet away, but they couldn't possibly pull off it at that point. Yeah. But with those small dogs, there is always a chance, that they can change their mind. It's why I felt like with small dogs, for the same reason, I always felt that Gamblers was really hard, because the dog had like 6 strides to decide, I'm not sure that this is what you want me to do. Whereas a big dog, like as soon as they headed toward the thing, they were like, as soon as they started to wonder, they were over it. It was done. So it is very different.
Yeah, and at least one of those courses had a ton of backsides.
Yeah,
I forget which one exactly, but there was one that had a million backside wraps and stuff like that. The other thing that I noticed I wanted to ask you about was the coloring of the tail. So first, I didn't know that you would be allowed to do that, so I wondered if that was a rule change or if it was ever a rule and people have been doing it for years and I just didn't pay enough attention. And then secondly, why did you choose the color that you chose and how did you do it? And so tell us all about that.
So it was not always allowed in AKC. So the first couple European Opens I went to, I had to use a water soluble wax for her so that it could come out, or else I wouldn't be allowed to run in AKC when I got home. And that was always kind of sad. But then AKC kind of separated from the conformation rules and started allowing it, which made me very happy, because then I could actually use real dye instead of the icky wax that I had put on. But all my dogs have color themes where their leashes are that color and blankets and things like that. And pink was the color that I hadn't used yet for any of my prior dogs. And it's kind of funny because I hate pink. Like, I hate pink. I hate it. But here's this little girl dog and she was all white. And so I'm like, well, let's just use the color pink on this dog and kind of use it up so I don't have to worry about it anymore as being a color. So Sundae got designated pink. And so it's kind of what we use for her tail.
So now she likes like pink?
I still am not a huge fan of pink, but I kind of have to join her. She likes to look like a princess while she kicks butt. So we do the pink, but it's actually a made for dogs dye. So people like to think, how could you do that? It's made for animals. She uses the Crazy Liberty, which tends to work really well and stays in for a really nice long time.
So do you use the dog on yourself, or do you match with human?
I go to a human person. And I said back in 2019 tryouts, I kind of made her a promise that if she won her spot on EO, I would go to a human person and I would get it done like for real, not just, a couple little highlights that I put in, but I would do it for real. And then when 2020 was canceled, I said, well, I kind of need to just hold up my end. So even though there was no EO in summer of 2020, I went and got my pink anyway, just, for keep my end of the bargain. So I just
love it. Man, I'll have to talk after. I cannot figure out how to get a color to stay and not then turn dingy after a couple of days. I would love to have bright colored hair, but so far I haven't gotten it to work yet. So we'll have to compare notes. Yeah, we need a white dog because we have no dogs to dye.
Get a white poodle and then you can do some.
Oh yeah.
Actually, in Austria, 2018, I stenciled blue stars down her back. It was really kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I want to do.
Very cool. All right. Well, let's deviate just for a minute and hear about how Jennifer and B did at this event. B being so young. We're so proud of B and making the team at the age that she is. So how did your week go, Jen?
Well, it's hard to even comment after that because I'm so excited and inspired for Sundae and Angie. But I decided to take B to EO for kind of test the waters to see where I'm at with the young dog. She was 2 years old when we tried out, and I went with her this year. So she's now 3. I hope to have a big international career. And I was like, I'm going to go to EO. We're going to see where we're at. Like, am I hanging with the pack? Are we a few seconds off, or are we like 65th, on a clean run? So we exceeded my expectations. We made both individual and team finals. We had a lot of baubles that weren't faulted throughout the weekend, and thinking about coming home with a homework list. I had 4 baubles, one which did result in an E, the other 3 just cost me time, and all 4 were the exact same skill. So the good news is my homework list is quite short at this point, but I'm very excited. I mean, even with the bauble and jumpers, we were able to make finals. So I think, if I can clean that up, we can get some better runs. In finals, I've never made a team or an individual final at EO. My first year I went, we didn't make either. So to be in both team and individual finals was super exciting. And then in individual finals, I was completely overwhelmed by the course and thought, okay, we're just going to go see where we're at. And we made it very far before we eat. I mean, it is an E in the end. So on paper, an E is an E, but I was very proud of how far we made it. We did fault on the one skill that I knew prior to Sunday morning was a weakness, but the analytical side of me has evaluated runs, done side by sides, compared times, and I'm very excited going forward. I think it's one of the most excited I've been coming home from an international event. I think most of that is because of the team, right? We had great team camaraderie. We had fantastic coaching. The team as a whole did really well. Angie's medal made everybody on, cloud nine. So there was just a lot of excitement coming home for the future of agility for the US. So for one of the first times, I'm coming home excited to go back again and attempt it again. So we don't have any monumental results, but I'm very excited and pleased with her performance. Unfortunately, we had an injury on our team. So even though our team made finals, we actually had to scratch on Saturday afternoon and pull from team. They let us run, but we were running for no score. So she got to practice and got to go out there and run in finals for team. But our team didn't do anything because of an unfortunate injury. So my EO on paper, not so fantastic, but I'm very excited for our future. And again, we have homework, and hopefully I will get a chance to go back in the upcoming years to try to get even better with her. So I was happy with my performance and looking forward to future years should I get that opportunity.
Awesome. So Angie, did you come home with homework? I mean, you won, but did you come home with homework?
Yes. Backsides. Shocker. I think that's always going to be my homework.
Yeah.
It's one of the few things that I really tried to hone in on beforehand. Because like I said, my dog is 8. There wasn't going to be reinventing of the wheel in terms of training. So I tried to pick a couple things that I could really get more bang for my buck. And that's when I started over the winter, in my basement, retraining them from the ground up. But it is still, and probably always will be on my homework list. But I also
go ahead.
I also wanted to kind of echo what Jen said, is that I'm just so proud of Team USA, as a whole. There was such incredible things that came from USA that in my 4 EOs, I have not ever seen such an amazing Team USA performance. They were incredible. And even the scores that may not have been so great on paper, you look at that one little thing and man, the rest of the runs just in general were amazing from Team USA. So I'm super proud of our team as a whole.
That's awesome.
I love the mindset, this idea of building on past performance. And I really like how both of you talked about, your past experiences kind of leading to where you are today. And obviously Angie having what looked on paper to be not great showings at the European Open, but really it was probably a key part of your journey to winning this year. And so just having that mindset. And then, when you travel back to the US, it's not all, we flew out there and Team USA did poorly again at another international competition, to get away from that kind of mindset and say, there's a lot of stuff here that we did really well. There's a lot of stuff here to celebrate, and there's a lot of stuff here to build on. And then after you put in your, years, then you're going to start seeing some of those results come back. And that's why I think agility is so challenging and interesting for people. If it were easy, if it were stupid easy, we wouldn't do it, right? If you could master all of agility in just a couple of weeks or months, I don't know how many of us would still be around trying to get things done in the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that both of you came home with very specific homework specific to you and your dogs and your, any gaps in trainings. But what would you say more generally, either one of you, about just for everybody, right? The kind, the trends that you're seeing, the advice that you would give if you didn't know what somebody's weaknesses are and you were just trying to give them a list of, these are the 2 or 3 or 4 skills that, knowing nothing about you, I would say you need to make sure that you have honed, right? Not necessarily one dog specific. What, either of y'all have anything there based on what you saw more generally at the event?
I think the biggest thing that I would tell people is get ready to run big lines. There's no way around it. And I am so, so glad my fitness was, where it was, because I didn't have to worry about that. At no point did I have to wonder, can I make it from one side of the arena to the other and get my dog over the correct obstacle? And that was huge. enough other things that you have to worry about rather than, can I run from this line to the next? So that's probably my biggest thing for people, is the spacing is so different. And even in a more narrow kind of ring, man, they can make some really long lines for handlers to have to run.
Right.
I would 100% agree. I had the conversation with a couple of people after returning home. Everybody wants to know your thoughts on the event, and some of the people that are aspiring to be at that level will ask, your opinion and your thoughts on things. And I think my two big takeaways for me was, I feel like I have the skills. I feel like I've taught the skills. I don't feel like I trust them to the level that needs to be trust. It's one thing to go out in your barn or in your yard and do them. And even if you say to yourself, like, I want to do it one and done, but like, if you wait a second to make sure the dog takes the jump, to get downstream or whatever, it might cost you a little bit of time, but in your own backyard, it's not a big deal. And I feel like the level of trust of the skills is above and beyond what I think a lot of people get practice doing. But the second thing is exactly what Angie mentioned. I've literally looked at people and I've been like, you need to get faster. You need to run harder. It's really difficult as an instructor to tell somebody like they need to get faster. That's hard. That's hard to tell somebody. I'm not a coach. I'm not a physical fitness person. I'm an agility handling instructor. So it's hard to tell them, but the size of the rings, the yardage of running, just to kind of put it in perspective for the listeners that might do AKC, it is possible for some of the best dogs in our country to run a standard course under 30 seconds with a 5-second table. Like, it's possible. Right. It's been done. I've seen it done, right? So you're running 25-second standard course and a 5-second table. And some of the best runs on these standard courses are in the 40s. 43 could be like super fast on a standard course. Like, that just goes to show you, and there's no table. That just goes to show you like the sheer yardage and the running. And even if you feel like you're a pretty good runner, it's the long distances while handling, while hollering verbals, and the mental like duration that has to, like, you can't give up mentally, right? The mental stamina, I guess. It's not just the physical stamina, but like there's nowhere to let up. We often will start to fade out at 17 or 18 obstacles. And it's like, no, 22. So it's even for me, I've been running big courses. I've been running long courses. I've been running long lines. It still was a shock to see that finals course for mediums run on like 130 by 175. Like, that's huge. And it's hard to train for that. It's just hard to train for that. I want to say, unless you go outside, that's what you have to do. I know, Angie, that's what you do, but it's like, I built a building that I thought was pretty good size relative to other areas, other buildings in the area. And now I'm like, it's half the ring. It's half the ring. So I actually came home and made contacts and arrangements to have an outdoor field done. So that was my EO motivation. Come home, get an outdoor field that I can make bigger than my building and get ready to train. So the level of trust that the skills are required, not just doing the skills, not just saying, can you send to a backside from 15 feet away, but the level of trust that's required. And then the speed and the running, hands down, were a huge takeaway for me.
Yeah. And I'd like to put that into perspective too, because I know that sometimes there's a little bit of pushback about, in air quotes, what our sport has become or what it takes to be competitive at our sport. But I would kind of like to point out to people that this is like an international event. This is like the equivalent of our Olympics, right? And if you want to be competitive at the Olympics, you have to compete at truly an elite level. Like, it is not an event designed for the casual or the like the casual competitor to go and win. So if you want to compete at that level, like, basically both of y'all are saying is this is now the requirement, the ability of the handler to run. For the most part, there are a few, like 2 or 3 in the entire world, people that have the kind of verbal skills where they can get through a course like this without having the ability to run. But we're talking about, 2 to 3 handlers in the entire world, I would say, that have that ability. Well, before we wrap up, Angie, what is next for you and Sundae, or for you as a handler? Do you have any thoughts about next dog, or is it still too soon? What's going on?
I do have a young dog that I'm bringing up. She's almost 2. So we're kind of working on getting her up to gear. And as for next, I will be starting to think about EO 2023, because as the winner, I get that automatic bye as the last dog to run in the finals in Denmark. So awesome. I'll go to tryouts. We will have the US Open in November. And even before that, though, going back to school next week. I am a high school teacher, so that is what's next on my plate, coming down from EO and heading back to school.
That's so funny. You're a high school teacher. We have a high school student. We have our son going back to school. He went back to school today. Today was the first day of school.
Yeah.
Senior year.
Wow.
You can believe it.
And he's
I know.
done. Yeah. What do you teach?
I teach chemistry.
Ooh. Do you teach AP chemistry as well?
No, just general chemistry, which is the equivalent of most AP classes in other places. We're a pretty up there district. So
awesome.
Gotcha.
Do you get to do experiments and make things explode and things like that?
Yeah, we do a lot of things with fire. I have char marks on my ceiling that the kids all really love. So
awesome.
Well, the other thing, I love that you're a teacher, because teachers are awesome. But the other reason that I love you're a teacher is because it does show that this is something that you do on the side, apart from, your day-to-day life. You have a whole life outside of agility. You're not just about agility. But I guess it's kind of convenient to have the summer for EO. Perfect timing.
Yeah, it is. But what most people don't realize is I only get 4 days a year to do what I want with. That's it. So if events don't happen during the summer or on a holiday break, I get 4 days. So hugely convenient that EO happens during the summer for me.
Right.
No.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Angie. It was a pleasure to talk to you about your event. And I just can't say congratulations enough on your entire career, really. But to cap it off with EO is just amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. And thanks for having me on.
And that's it for this week's podcast. We'd like to thank our sponsor, hititboard.com. Happy training.
Thank you for listening to Bad Dog Agility. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information, updates, and links to all our socials, just check out our website, www.baddogagility.com. If you haven't already signed up for our email subscription, we would love to have you join the BDA community. Until next time, take care.